All right, so we'll just jump in. Don, next slide, please. So the impact of the COVID-19 on our COCA camps, these 5 topics are actually, these are things that we have, yes, we've experienced, I've experienced as far as my camp is concerned, but these are the items that we've already, as an organization, have heard from our members as items that they're seeing and they're struggling with and have questions with. So that's going to guide what's going to happen here today. Next slide. Thank you. So this was emailed out to folks. In case you didn't see it, it's quite all right. So this is basically how our town hall is set up. It is your town hall. We do have an agenda, but it is a fluid agenda designed for you. It's all about your input and all about your camp and your campers. What it is not is definitely not a health scientific review of the virus. We know how it affects us physically, but we need to concentrate on how it's affecting our camps. It's definitely not a lecture. This hopefully will be the large amount or the only time that I'm monopolizing this conversation. So it's definitely not a lecture and definitely not time to be silent. If you have questions, please ask them. If you can't get through as far as speaking, you can put your question in the chat function. Jennifer is kind enough, she is monitoring our chat function. So this way, if there is something that comes up on a question, we can interject and make sure that your question gets asked and answered. So please feel free to do that as well. Next slide, please. So jumping right in, this is pulled directly from the survey that was sent out to our members last week. It's just a tidbit, a snippet of the results, specifically focused on the camp scheduling and operations. And if you can see by the pie chart, it's what the current state and local restrictions are that are facing your camp operations. And the bar graph is talking about canceled events, specifically for the months of April, May, and June. As you can see right now for camp scheduling operations, there are no scheduled summer cancellations according to the survey, but we can obviously discuss that as we go on. So again, this will be emailed to everyone, so please don't think you need to quickly screenshot or copy it down. We will make sure that you get it. Okay, so we're going to open up our conversation. Don, next slide, please. Talking about specifically the camp scheduling and the operations. And we want to talk about, have you had to reschedule or cancel your camp? Not just specifically your summer camp, but any of the other types of programs or camp events, such as a sibling camp, a family camp, what have you. Have you had to reschedule or cancel any of them? What went into those decisions, as well as do you have plans for rescheduling those, and what went into that? So we'll really look at for a few minutes that top piece. So if anyone has anything they'd like to talk about as far as what's happening with their camp or questions, please jump in.
I can start real quick. Camp Rising Sun in Connecticut, we're supposed to have had our mini camp weekend with our campers this past weekend. Obviously, that did not happen since everything is shut down. We did some cabin-based Zoom calls, and that went pretty well. We had campers on. We did some karaoke with the little girls over Zoom. It was pretty fun. Yeah, we definitely missed out on having our camp, but we're hoping the summer is still on. So.
Yeah, I'm from Happiness is Camping. We have a family camp over Memorial Day weekend that we've already canceled, and then we do 5 weeks of camp in June and July, and we've already canceled the session that starts the last week of June, and we're hoping to have camp starting July 5th and 4 sessions after that.
Hi, this is Dina from Camp Tecumseh, and we did have to cancel our winter weekend for our oldest campers at the time. We were still able to kind of send some camp magic to them. We gathered up a bunch of items, some arts and crafts objects, and with directions and with their clothing, sent those out. right now we're a little more hesitant about doing that, but our upcoming play group for our 0 to 6-year-olds and our moms retreat are being canceled. And so we're working hard on some alternative ways to serve those families. So more to come on that.
For those I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is Melissa from Kids Need More on Long Island. And, you know, we do have a weekend retreat training camp that we've canceled. That would have been in the end of May to June. We didn't cancel the camps yet, but we're, you know, obviously in the same boat. And we started a virtual camp series that has been really fun, and it's working, you know, through Zoom at this time. So it's been, you know, dance classes and fun things.
I've been following along with Kids Need More's virtual stuff, and it's been terrific. It's been unbelievable.
Oh, thanks. I really feel like I'm very hopeful, and I wanted to open it, you know, like something we could share. It's, you know, for us to do together. I mean, obviously, you know, it's been getting the counselors and all those people I want to engage now. We all want to engage now, having something to do and be purposeful. So thank you for that.
So if there's any other folks who have talked about or are thinking about canceling or rescheduling, are there any other criteria besides state regulations that anyone is considering or following or guiding their decision making into the cancellation or rescheduling of their events?
Hey, this is Shannon from Smile a Mile in Birmingham. We have also canceled some of our camps through June. And that advisement, it was obviously local and state directed as far as the social distancing, but also our medical team has advised us that because they're immune suppressed, that was probably their comfort level reaching out through the end of June, because the kids are going to need to be isolated a little bit longer than the typical public. So we did kind of follow their direction on that, and we're just reformulating what that looks like. We're rescheduling some camps, we're doing the Zoom, and we're reaching out through social media, and we're also sending out some packets of activities, so just to keep the families and kids engaged.
Hey, this is Dennis with Camp Tecumseh. Matthew, to answer your question about others that we're following, the state of Vermont is in lockdown as of yesterday, so that's clearly what we're following at this point. But prior to that, we worked very closely with the head of pediatric oncology from the hospital, Dr. Homans, who's a great partner to our camp. And then we are grateful to have a long-term volunteer who's an infectious disease specialist from UCLA, Dr. Rafi Landovitz, and we've been following and working with him, and together he and Dr. Homans are providing us with lots of guidance, which has been very helpful for us to have Rafi from one side of the country and Dr. Homans right here at home, who've made a great pair in giving us recommendations and direction of what we should do.
Correct. And we can continue on this topic if folks have anything else to say, but I definitely also like to move to the bottom piece for a moment and ask, have they, you know, in preparation for maybe camps that are happening in June and July, has anybody been in contact or assessed the availability of families attending? Have you seen any reluctance? Any issues with volunteer staff? Some camps have paid staff, so any issues with that? And of course, a burning question that I see all over Facebook is recruiting medical staff for our camps. So has anyone assessed the availability of any of these categories, or any category that we are missing?
So we still have, sorry, Melissa, we still have families that are signing up. We haven't seen any reluctance there. Our problem is going to be medical staff. So we normally have one oncologist and two pediatric oncology nurses on staff. And it sounds like we're considering not taking kids that are on active treatment this summer. So that would allow us to kind of scale back the needs of our medical staff. And our nursing director has already said that she thinks she's going to be able to scratch together a medical staff where normally we have to turn away medical staff all summer long.
Wow. Okay.
I forgot what I was gonna say. It's pretty the same, but I think that we it's like a little too soon. Like everybody's really engaged, but I feel like day by day, like it's just changing. Like the attitudes and the thoughts and are just changing. Like, I like just a few days ago I said, oh, we'll probably still have July camp, and then now I'm really unsure. I think that the people want to be there. I don't know if we can really make like if it's really going to be feasible. Like I feel like next week it's going to change. It could change at any time.
Mhm. I know for my camp in New Jersey, we're towards the end of August, so a lot of things it's just a waiting game for us. Um, I know I've reached out to my families, and I've had minimal um, questioning about if they're coming to camp or not. Same thing with my staff. My only issue is becoming my medical staff because their use of their PTO is deteriorating, and um, in addition, I have other concerns about, three of my top medical staff are also pregnant, so they're definitely not going to be able to come to camp. But I definitely see medical staff as an issue for us anyway, and our camp is in August. So any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions regarding the camp scheduling and operations aspect? No? Okay.
I have a comment. So our paid staff, I'm sure a lot of you guys are experiencing the same thing, but our career fairs is where we get most of our paid staff. So I am a little nervous. Right now we have 9. We usually hire about 20. So I reach out to the returners, just asking them, talk to your friends, please. And a lot of the schools that are actually working with us to do like virtual career fairs, which is nice, but I'm just nervous. But I think we still have family and camper applications coming in. We still have volunteers coming in. It's the paid staff and the medical staff that I'm definitely nervous about.
Thank you for that. And just a reminder to folks, if anyone has any questions of anyone specific in the group or something that you've heard, please just chime in and ask away. There may be something that's burning in your mind that you'd like to ask, so please feel free, ask it here. It may be another question that somebody else was thinking as well. Okay, so we'll actually just continue then. You're going to hear this a lot from me today, that this conversation doesn't have to end, and I encourage it not to end. Please feel free to continue to reach out during multiple or through multiple avenues, which we'll explain at the end of the call. But the conversation doesn't have to end just because we are switching gears and moving to another topic. But before we do that, is there any other comments or questions regarding camp scheduling and operations from anybody? Okay.
This is Maureen at Camp
Maureen.
Sunshine.
Yes.
I was just wondering, you just said that you got some advice from the UCLA expert. Just wondering what that advice was.
So very, very early on, sorry, this is Dennis from camp. Very early on, his advice was to cancel all programs. We have an immunocompromised population, and not just to cancel our camper programs, but to cancel all of our family programs as well, siblings, moms weekends, dads weekends, and so forth, because we can't put the family at risk as a whole. Even for the children that are in remission or some sort of remission, the feeling was we can't put them at risk either. So very early on, the feeling was that we needed to cancel, postpone, move into a virtual format of some kind, those programs at this time. So we've canceled everything for March. We will be canceling everything for April. Unsure about May at this point, and we're really going to look to both Dr. Homans and Dr. Rafey, to give us advice as we get deeper into April of what May looks like. They didn't, neither of them, neither Dr. Homans or Rafey, felt that it was necessary to cancel our summer program at this time, and to do a kind of wait and see.
Thank you. Does anyone have like a drop dead, like they're going to make a decision for the summer by such a date?
This is Matt. Again, my camp starts August 14th. So in essence, we evaluated how much time was going to be needed to get camp off the ground. We are still planning all now, but we decided between July 1 and July 5, we'll decide if our August camp is going to occur. So we really gave it about a month.
Thank you.
All right. If anyone has, go ahead, Dennis. I see you highlight.
I was just going to add, this is Dennis. We are continuing to move forward. Our program is the last week of July. We're continuing to move forward like we are planning to do that. We are hoping to not have to cancel. I think we are looking at a 2 to 4 week time frame, although we haven't said it yet. If we're going to cancel, that we would make that decision within 2 to 4 weeks. One thing to note that we are doing, though, that others might find helpful, is that any contracts we are signing for our program for the summer, for tent rentals, whatever it may be, we are now adding to those contracts a statement about the possibility of a COVID cancellation, and a hold harmless to both parties if we have to cancel those contracts. We're also going back to any contracts we've already signed and notifying them that that is our hope and our wish, and our working with them that if we have to cancel, that it would be a hold harmless cancel for all parties. We haven't heard back from the few contracts we have signed, but just thought it might be helpful for people to think about contractual obligations and the need to add language about a possible cancellation.
So, in y'all's region, but I just hopped on, and I will say that we are a hospital-based camp, and our camp is in June, the second weekend in June, and we have not notified anyone, but just in-house agreed with our medical staff that we will probably, I mean, we for sure not having it in June. We may try and see the feasibility of rescheduling to August, but because of our patient population and our affiliation with the hospital, and our medical team's concern that there will still be plenty of disease out and about in the community, that we are not holding camp in June.
Thank you, Cass. Okay. So, we've touched a bit of a lot of areas that, even more areas than we had anticipated, which is fantastic. But I know we talked a bit about staffing and staffing concerns. So that's actually where we're gonna move into with the next slide. Is from the survey, we've asked about volunteer and staff recruitment, and so folks can see a tidbit of the results there. With the confidence level of recruiting enough volunteers to run camp, based on last year's levels, as you can see in the blue, 57% said yes, they feel that they could run camp with last year's level. And also the second pie chart, the blue area is confidence level in recruiting medical staff. Again, you'll get a copy of the results because they may obviously look a little different based on who filled out the survey and when their camp is. So next slide, we'll talk about staffing and recruiting, interviewing, training. What are folks doing? We've talked a bit about that. College campuses or college areas were a hotbed of staff, if you will. But what are folks doing as far as recruiting staff, their interviews? Are we doing virtual interviews? And what type of training are we looking at? If anyone has any comments or questions.
Hi, this is Dina at Camp Tecumseh. As far as interviewing, we a couple of years ago moved to a group interview process, which has been great, and we have been able to adapt that via Skype at times for people who can't be on site. So that's proved to be a very good resource and process for us. So I would highly suggest that if anyone has questions about that, and I'm happy to answer those too.
Hey, this is Shannon from Smile Mile. We also adapted the same protocol, and so we're doing Zoom meetings with our volunteers, and it's working out really well. That way we tried the one-on-one with a FaceTime, and we didn't feel like we were getting out of it what we got out of a group session. So we switched over to the group, and it's been much more well received, I would say.
Hi, Alicia from Camp Good Days. I work with Caitlin. So I'm working with interviewing volunteers, and that actually I've been doing the same thing as the rest of the group's been talking about, doing virtual. I'm using Skype. For volunteers, we do one-on-one interviews, and that's been working out well. I found that volunteers actually have more time now, so I'm getting a lot more done than I was before. So while I know it's hindering Caitlin with her summer staff hiring, I actually volunteer recruitment has actually kind of been, I haven't noticed a drop off, which is luckily so far.
That's good to hear.
I'm not sure if anybody else is in the same boat, but we own our own facility and we have rental groups that also come in around our summer camp. So we use a lot of international staff, and right now they're kind of up in the air on if they're going to be able to come. So we're probably going to have to start recruiting exclusively American staff. We've been told if our international staff have visas in hand, then they might be able to come starting May 15th. But if they don't have a visa, which a lot of them, if they don't plan ahead, don't already, they're most likely not going to be able to come in summer.
What are folks doing as far as thinking ahead as far as how am I going to train my staff? My staff, for instance, all of our training is done on site a day before the campers arrive. But I know there are other camps that do training a month ahead of time, over a weekend. Has there been any talk or thoughts about a virtual training or just moving those weekend trainings to day before trainings? Any thoughts or comments on that?
So we've had to cancel groups, and now we have an extra week before our summer camp. We normally do staff training an entire week before, and now that that group is canceled, we're actually doing a 2-week-long staff training, but it's mostly going to be serving as like a 14-day quarantine period for our staff before our kids
Wow. Okay. All right. Again, if there are any other comments or questions as we move on, or you've thought of something that we didn't get a chance to cover in the previous section, feel free to just chime in and jump in and ask away, or feel free to document it in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get to your questions and concerns and comments. Another topic on the next slide that we're going to jump into is, I know it's a hot topic for a lot of folks, and that is fundraising. Again, here are two pieces of results from the pre-survey, and how how has your fundraising been affected by the current restrictions? And you can see in blue, yes, significantly. And then in the other pie chart, is it likely that the lack of funds may prevent you from holding camp this year? And I'd like to say, fortunately, in the yellow, the answer is no. But there is still a significant percentage that say yes, so, and unsure. So definitely, on the next slide, we're really going to talk about, what have you all have been doing? Have you had to reschedule or just outright cancel fundraising events? Are folks doing out of the box ways to fundraise, whether it's virtual fundraising, or I know on our survey result, we did have some folks express, that they felt uncomfortable asking folks to donate at this time because of everything that's going on. So definitely want to hear from all of you. What are you doing in terms of fundraising or staying connected with your donors and your sponsors? And what are you doing to help still continue to raise money for camp?
So I can start. We had to already cancel our largest fundraising gala, that pretty much like $100,000 event for us that we've had to cancel. We've also had one foundation that called us that said that even if we don't have camp, we can still keep the money. We had one foundation that said, well, if you don't have camp, then why should we give you money, even though they've given to us for multiple years. And then we had one foundation that called us yesterday that said, we're having a board meeting and we're going to talk about it, but we just don't want you to worry if you don't have camp.
Nice.
Hey, so for us, we fortunately were past our largest fundraiser for the year before this hit. So we really were very lucky in that sense. However, we have had to schedule several of our fundraisers that were slated for the spring and summer. Tentatively, we have moved those to late summer, and everybody's been really supportive of that. And so it looks like as long as everything plays out as projected, then we will still be able to host those. As far as the grants and the foundations, everybody has really been supportive. I've been pleasantly surprised by that. I expected to see a downturn in the funding, but those who have reached out to us have said, hey, we know you're adapting your program. We know it's going to look a little different this year, but we know that you're still continuing the programming. So don't worry about it. You're good to go. We're still going to support. We do have, I think there were two that did reach out and say that they were still going to make awards this year. However, they may be slightly smaller awards. So I would say all in all, it's been pretty positive response on that.
Same for us. Hey guys. Same for us. We're, trying to be a little more cautious about how we plan our summer events. Trying to, same thing with programming, sort of go day by day and see how things are constantly evolving. We have events in June, July, and August. And so we're looking at sort of what those will look like and holding off right now on really asking for registrants because we don't want to have to get into a situation where we have to either refund monies coming in for registrations if we don't then have to. We have unfortunately had a couple of bigger events, especially this month, that have been canceled or rescheduled. Both the two events equal about $100,000 of revenue for us, which was really unfortunate. So we're looking at sort of what we can do to sort of mix things up a little bit. We're looking at virtual fundraisers. We are looking at right now in Vermont, our mailing centers are not operating either. So looking at if we can even do direct mailings. And so, just trying to be as creative as possible in this weird time. We've similarly seen the foundations have been very flexible and individuals as well. There's still money coming in, which makes us feel good. But just trying to figure out sort of how we can rely on our usual techniques, but also sort of reinvent ourselves and how we're fundraising.
I'll speak to this a little bit, just outside of the camp world. This is my everyday world of especially major gift fundraising. But, it's important right now, whether, one, for your fundraising events to try to postpone them versus cancel them. So keeping that in the back of your mind, because there's a lot of people who give through events, whether it's a golf tournament, a gala, an auction, and that's their means. So they like to support your cause, but that's their avenue of doing that on an annual basis. So if you take that away from them, that there's not really that opportunity in front of them to continue to support your mission. So trying to postpone instead of canceling is a good idea. Also, what do you do when an event is postponed? And a lot of camps have external events versus internal events. So a lot of it does fall on the external event organizer. And they may say like, nope, too much work or too much going on. I can't turn this into a virtual event. But sure that that's sort of one of your top strategies is talking to those external event organizers about other ways, because you may have an event that has 200 participants in it and suddenly the event is canceled. Well, what happens to those 200 participants? Are those event organizers still giving them an opportunity and an avenue to still support your camp? So that's important. But I would say more than anything right now is this is a time for camps to use this as stewardship. So yes, you're losing revenue because your events are being canceled or postponed. And also people are focusing on other emergency needs that are going on. So food shelves and shelter and things like that, everyday needs. But this is a really important time to call your donors and just ask how they're doing. Because later down the road, they're going to remember that phone call. So pure stewardship right now. And stewardship is the most important type of cultivation. So just remember that. Another opportunity is peer-to-peer fundraising, which seems funny to ask other people to raise money on your behalf in a time of a crisis, but it actually is beneficial in a time like this. So some of those times when you had a big event that didn't happen, turning that into a virtual event and having a Camp Heroes campaign and asking those people that would normally attend to go out, ask your board members to go out and be a camp hero and ask their friends to support the mission during this time. Also remembering that these people that are your donors, they're already engaged in your camp. So they already have some interest, and be transparent with them. Most of your camps probably aren't going to shut the door tomorrow. So there's no need to cry wolf and say, you're going to shut down and all this stuff. But in 3 months from now, this is going to impact you. If you have a $100,000 summer program and you're not having those events right now, that revenue's not coming in and other things are happening, that's going to eventually affect you down the road. So be really transparent with people. So that's my advice in this time, in the fundraising world, is just use this time to really connect with your donors and show that you care. That's important.
That was so helpful. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you.
Another thing, just off the top of my head, that we have found is that some of the larger corporations and foundations, we are finding they've actually reached out to us, but just kind of doing some digging on our own as well. They have actually reallocated a lot of funding for emergency grants. So that's really a good avenue to kind of poke around and see if any of those funders may have some emergency grants that they're releasing to deal with the COVID response from the nonprofit standpoint. So good avenue to check there if you haven't looked into that.
Are there any other questions of each other or concerns regarding fundraising or other avenues as far as donors and such? Okay. Just continuing on then, a good portion of the remainder of this town hall is really to talk about contingency plans and what have folks put into place. We do have a very, very short little video. You may have seen it. It is kind of all over social media, but just take a quick look and then we'll talk about it right after. There is normally sound with this. So since we don't have, for some reason, the sound with it, these folks, if you haven't seen the video before, this is a local acapella, not really local for me, but it's a acapella choir group that had to cancel their big event, and they did not want to do so because of all the work that they put in together as a team and all the planning that went into it. So they actually took the opportunity to do the show, but they did it using Zoom or another avenue where they were able to come together, sing their song, which is a great song. So hopefully you all can Google it after the meeting. Or actually, when we send this out to you, this sound hopefully will work. But that's the idea of kind of thinking outside the box and what can we do for our campers and our camps and our staff when things aren't going the way we had hoped. We come together as a team, we come together as a community, and we persevere. So these two pie charts are based on the survey again. So the first pie chart is if you cannot hold camp this summer, have you developed plans to bring camp to the kids? A significant amount did say yes. The other pieces did not. Again, that's solely based on that one topic, the one question. However, there was a second piece to that question, which has to do with if you are thinking about virtual camps, which is your second pie chart. And a lot of folks are considering or already making plans to bring camp to the kids virtually, as we already heard from Melissa at Kids Need More, that they're already doing that. So that's really where we want to focus our next parts of our discussion is what are we doing or what can we do or what is the plan to do something different, to continue to bring camp to the campers, whether it's in place of a camp or a program or something just to keep them engaged during this time, and as well as families, etc. So I'd love to hear if you all are planning something, thinking about it, considering it, and what questions do you have of each other?
So I can start. We've kind of piggybacked off of what Kids Need More has done. If you don't follow them on Facebook, I definitely suggest looking them up because they've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings with different Disney characters to speak with their kids. They also just had someone lead yoga with all their kids via Zoom. We had an arts and crafts session last week. That was awesome. That was kind of a test run on what we'll do in the summer if we do have to cancel. We had about 20 kids on that Zoom, and it was like a last minute thing, and they all really enjoyed it. I've also found there's games like online bingo that you can set up and you can do virtually via Zoom. So we would kind of just try to make our camp sessions as Zoom friendly as possible. A lot of kind of game shows that we would host, as well as different arts and crafts, yoga, anything you can do on the live stream.
I just want to say that it's a lot more fun than just being on a webinar with us. If you think I'm just going to put all your kids on and do this, no, it's everybody's laughing, the kids are engaged. Like it really is. I don't know. I think it's sometimes like you can actually see them and spotlight them, and really, it's much more engaging than I thought it would be when we started. That's what I say. So it's a very hopeful thing. It's definitely not a webinar.
Well, when kids are involved, obviously the fun definitely can ensue.
Can I ask, for those that have done like a webinar or arts and crafts online, have you had any, like, what are some of like the barriers or like problems that you've had to work through? Any like pushback from parents and not wanting to do, like, having their kid on the video or anything like that?
Well, I can say that I didn't have any pushback of parents. I mean, it was just open, so it was just whoever wanted to come could come. And I I just put it out there. I didn't even consider that what you're saying. Like they didn't. I would assume if they're going on, then they must be okay with it because they were there. I like the sense that the parents are available, that they're around. I could say that the barriers are more of like if you put a lot of passcodes on your session, then there's barriers to getting in. Like if we got a passcode to get onto this Zoom, which I noticed there wasn't, which is probably because it's open, um, you might need people ready to help people navigate getting in to the camp. And every time you host another session, there could be another password. So, that's really, it's just getting people actually on and not making it a hard process for them to actually be there. Then you can, make it, larger. Once you have a lot of kids in a session, once it's going out to 15 or 20 or 25 kids and you're trying to keep them engaged, you will need other people to help you manage the kids. So that means that you need to either purchase other hosts in the package, like we use Zoom. So you might need to have it so that other people can help, like quiet the kids or mute their mics. And those kind of things. And like if we're doing a craft, not everybody has those materials right now in their house. So you might need to do something that's easy, that they can get. Like, we're just talking about like, the bingo, and there's other games you could do that you don't have to worry about some of that stuff. But if you tell them ahead of time, or if you're using things that the families might just have, it might not be a problem.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks, Melissa.
Melissa, do you guys use the paid option? Because I know with Zoom, yeah, there's one free and then there's a next level up. And I think the free one, you only get about 30 minutes on and then you have to restart or something like that. So can you kind of explain that process?
Yeah, so we purchased the Zoom, and then we got the package. Then we bought another host on it. We might need more hosts as these kind of grow. Um, it's not a lot, it's not that expensive. It's, between $15 and $20 per host a month. And yeah, the free package I didn't think was going to work. because you have to, the session's too brief.
We've also done that, and then we purchased the annual subscription and are looking to possibly add some additional hosts. But the other thing that we are actively doing now is the Camp in the Box idea for the inpatient kids. And so we've, under the guidance of our medical team, have a protocol that we have to follow to package everything up for them. And then we've done, we're recording video tutorials so that they can play them at their convenience. And then there's also some type directions that we include with the package with photos that kind of show a step-by-step. But we're having, particularly the parents that, and other kids are inpatient, they're begging for anything because the hospital that we work with, Children's of Alabama, unfortunately has had to disconnect the guest Wi-Fi. So none of the kids have access to stream photos or videos or play on their iPads or devices. So they're really struggling right now, being with isolation and everything, and just finding things for the kids to do.
And Shannon, what do you include in that box?
So the first two that we did, we've done a tie-dye kit. And so we did 2 colors and a t-shirt, so a white t-shirt and then the rubber bands. So super simple, and it comes in the Ziploc bag for them to put the shirt in when it's got to dry. And then we also we bought puppy pads. This sounds crazy, but that way they can lay them out over their hospital tray, and it keeps the mess contained. And then the gloves for them to use while they're tie-dyeing. So we include, and we put a Tide Pod in for the parents, so if they want to wash it afterward, they have that too. So we did that for the tie-dye. And then we've done another one that's just a sun catcher with the suction cups that they can stick in the hospital window in their room. And so we included the paint pods, the brushes, and then the piece that they actually paint in the suction cups. So it's nothing extravagant, it's nothing over the top, but it's just something to kind of keep them engaged and have a little fun and take their mind off of it for a bit.
Would you be able to share what that protocol is in packing those boxes, or a bit of that, please?
Yes, so we had to be, everyone that touched it had to be gloved. Everything had to be wiped down with a Clorox wipe before we dropped it into the bag. And then once we sealed the bag, the outside of the bag had to be Clorox wiped with a glove. And then it went into a cardboard box. That cardboard box will sit for a day. And then because the hospital has cut off obviously all visitors, we can't physically enter the hospital, but we have contacts that will come down and pick up on the different floors. We'll pick up the boxes and we'll then distribute them appropriately.
Thank you.
Is that and I may have missed it, I apologize, but is that protocol, did that come from the hospital itself?
Yes, so that came from our medical director, who is an oncologist at Children's of Alabama, and then also the additional oversight combined with her guidance from the hospital itself. I forgot to add, we all did wear masks too while we were preparing those items. So gloves, masks, Clorox wipes, sanitize as it's going in the bag, sanitize once you seal the bag. But then again, check with your medical advisement team on what their protocol is, because I'm sure it varies hospital to hospital. And also check, because what we're finding is that the protocols change daily. So we have a contact person, and we're actually trying to help multiple floors as well as the medical teams to serve them in this time of need, because we feel like right now it's everybody that's in need. So we're trying to tackle it floor by floor at the hospital. Obviously, we have specialized programs for our campers, but we are using some of the emergency grants that we have been able to get our hands on to kind of help serve some of those that are outside of our normal umbrella, because those grants allow for that. So that's a really good way to put that to use. But we do have a point person on each floor, which helps facilitate the communication. And that right now we found was like probably one of the most difficult hurdles to overcome initially, was getting good information and finding out how do we then disseminate our own information or get our own questions answered. So once we nailed down those contacts, it made it so much easier, and it took a lot of burden off of the staff. We weren't blowing up their email, we weren't texting them, things like that. So it's really kind of streamlined that process.
Thank you, Shan. Other thoughts on Camp in a Box, or out of the box thinking as far as programming is concerned? I do want to also just, I'll throw it out there, and I know Don put it in the chat, but for those who, if you are having an online event that work was successful or in the process, please let us know about it. You can email Don. We'd love to be able to make sharing your success and put it out there to folks, as well as if you are hosting an online event that I do also follow Melissa and her camp, and they are a lot of fun to watch. But if if you're hosting something and you'd like to put it out there, feel free to tag us. Tag COCA, and this way anyone who follows COCA can see and share in the joy that is your camp. I say that with everything, not just this time of the year because of this situation, but we definitely love to see what everybody's doing throughout the year. So if you could always tag us or let us know of an event that's coming up, we'd love to be able to share it with folks.
Well, I wanted to just put this out there. I know, I think that if we wanted to, because of this a webinar, or, the being on doing these virtual camps, we could host a different camp like every day or every week, or like feature different camps, and then we could kind of share in that, and that would be a lot of fun. I thought, I don't know how people feel about that, but because everybody kind of has their own culture or their own thing that they would want to do, but it might be neat if we could share that part. I would help anybody who wanted to do that. So just kind of putting that out there. It's going to be neat to hear about all the different camps, and we, there's a lot of camps that some kids can go to multiple camps too, like not just now, but in the future might be an opportunity for us to like learn from each other a little bit. I don't know how people feel about that, but I'll just kind of put it out there. I could write something to you and maybe send that to you, and I send it to Dawn, see what anybody thinks.
Yeah, I think that's great, Melissa. I mean, I'd definitely be willing to do it with our camp. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Melissa, this is Don. Matt has kept me muted all this time, but I think it's a fabulous idea. So we'll be back in touch with you to see what we can do about it. It's sort of like share your camp calendar. I think that's just wonderful. So thank you for the idea.
Great.
There's good reason, folks, why I kept Don muted. Even though I really don't have control over that, it is still a really good reason why we did it. I love Don. Don, if you can put up the next slide, that would be awesome. As we wrap up, I want to give a couple of minutes to, if there's anything else, any other questions folks have in regards to the virus's impact on your camp and other camps. I definitely want to give you the opportunity to talk about it for the next few minutes, but also want to put up just our basic contact information, our email addresses, Don, Jennifer, myself, and our website and Facebook and the listserv. For the simple fact of as I said before, the conversation does not have to end just because this town hall ends. We encourage the conversation to continue, and there's multiple avenues of ways of doing that. Through our Facebook page, through our Instagram, and definitely through the listservs. Sending out a question and getting 132 camps to answer is, the potential of information there is awesome. So if you'd like to be a part of that, let us know. But again, if you have questions, please email, please call, whatever it is that you need to do just to reach out. But are there any other questions, comments, concerns that anyone would like to bring up at this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I attended the ACA Tri-State Convention 2 weeks ago, and their stance on it was kind of that at this point they're not worried about summer camps happening. They believe that they're going to happen. Obviously, the majority of summer camps aren't in the same position as us with our immunocompromised populations, but their kind of stance was that by then everything's going to blow over, everything's going to be open, and they chose to be super optimistic about this.
That would be great, and that's honestly key for a lot of folks. Is the optimistic portion, that we really just need to stay focused and positive as much as possible in a world of uncertainty and uncharted waters. To stay as positive as possible. And I did see, Dennis, your comment, and I love the idea of a Zoom session for kids to connect to across camps. I think that's awesome. Definitely be willing to do that. And that's a great way of staying positive and staying connected as a community. We all may be from different states and different parts of the world, but as long as we can stay connected, it's fantastic. So thank you. Any other last thoughts or questions? All right. We are sending out, we do have a survey. It'll only take a few minutes. If folks could please take this survey. It's in regards to this town hall and also any future town halls that we may have on various topics. We'll be asking you for those topics. But I just want to take a second and thank you all so very much for joining us today. It was extremely informative. We will get those notes out to you as soon as possible. But thank you all so very, very much, and stay positive and go camp. Thank you, everybody. Ryan, if you're still on, I see you there. Whenever you get the opportunity, whatever notes you